Welcome, Sons of the Warrior, Episode 5.
Nice. Yes, we've made it to Episode 5. Be honest with you, this is like Episode 8 or 9, but the first two, or not the first two, but the first couple we were trying to record, turns out the sound didn't work. So we're like, we're going to have to redo all that.
Audio.
It was very unfortunate. And then we recorded another one, and still the sound was there. It was just sounded like you were in a cave.
And we were in the other room with the microphone sitting in the middle of the table of the other room. And
so this is the fourth try.
This is the learning process.
Yeah.
The amateur hour at the podcast.
We are professional.
In those times, there, we had stuff going on, so you couldn't come back right away and just re-record. So sorry guys, it has been a few weeks since we've got
Not gonna lie.
Out. Yeah.
Talking to some of the guys, and they're like, yeah, we've just given up on y'all's podcast because y'all clearly don't.
So it's a 2-part series. We cut it in half, so it was like the mini series of 8 episodes. We had the 4. You take the break like through the summer, and then they released the 4 more.
Oh, man.
Well, it's
yeah, y'all
we
didn't know about that.
We just had a month instead of a season.
Yeah. Oh, dang.
Yeah. No, that's really what was the whole plan.
No
so really
pressure.
all that I just said
purpose.
was all on purpose.
Yeah, these next few episodes better be the real.
Yeah, but anyways, we're
real.
getting into it. Everybody's been working.
Not gonna lie, after you miss 4 years of work, there's a lot to do when you get home.
To catch up on.
Almost
A lot
overwhelming.
to catch up on.
Well, you started working as a cabinet maker /
doing some carpentry work now. It's been good. A lot to learn. I'm used to iron work, which if you're within half inch to a quarter, you're good. Fill the gap. But these guys are working with down to the 16th to the 32nd.
I don't even have a tape measure.
We do not use those measurements. You are crazy. But it is very beautiful work. Some of their cabinets they'll put out, it all looks like one piece of wood. All the grain is lined up in the wood. It's something else. So it's a really good trade to learn. And no better way to learn a trade than to get paid for it. So, if you want to learn a new trade, go get a job doing it, because that's the best way to learn something.
You learn and you make money.
And
when you said fill in the gap, it brought back the best sermon Gabe has ever preached, and it's the stand in the gap.
Oh man.
Yeah, man. The memories flowed back.
Yeah, that was a tough one.
I don't remember this.
What, from Cleveland Heights?
Yeah, that was
like 8 years ago, probably.
My wife reminds me of it every once in a while.
Oh, wow.
Really?
That's nice.
Oh, man. Is that a good thing? Or?
Yeah, she goes,
Yeah, no, that's a good thing. Yeah.
Remember that one time you preached yourself?
Remember what you preached? Practice what you preach.
Sometimes it's that. Sometimes it's.
Yeah. No, I can see that.
Remember back when you used to be spiritual?
oh, wow. Man.
Oh, my
Hey.
Hey,
goodness.
but we all have to keep ourselves in check.
You got.
It's easy to get complacent. It's easy to just get caught up in your day-to-day life, and the next thing you know, it's been 8 years.
Well, and to get complacent with your walk
No, that's
with
not.
Christ.
It's not a lie. Like, especially coming out of jail, like you have to remind, because you don't have so much time. You're constantly go, like working out and like making quiet time and having time, to read the word or whatever. It's very easy to just like you're all the way at the end of the day and you haven't even done either one of those things.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
No, it's I was hearing some of the other guys talking about just how they're so ADHD and just you go from one thing to the next because you can't just sit still. Really, it's hard because your mind just doesn't work that way. You've been put in a system for so long of just this is what you do every day. This is how it works. You go in, lock down at this time. You go in at this time. You work with a tiny amount of stuff, and you have a perfect place for all your stuff. And so when you're out, you have to, retrain your mind, I guess, to.
It was almost
realize.
like when we first got home, we were like looking around the house. Look, granted, you have so much more stuff. You have people in and out. You have outside Like, so you have dirt coming in and out. You got all this stuff. And we're like looking around like, where's detail when you need them? Like, where's
detail needs
like,
to tighten up.
Dang, we are failing. Like, that should have been mopped up. That microwave is atrocious. Like,
Oh, yeah. That's it.
So you feel like, okay, we have an hour. Everybody goes to bed. You need to come back out and start cleaning it.
Oh man,
It's so sad. And we were only in there for a year.
I couldn't imagine.
I can't. Those guys.
Some of the
4
guys that were
years
in
guy.
the solid 4 years.
And they had a whole lot. We had a little bit of solitary confinement, but nothing like they went through. And so that,
but it changes
your mind.
you how you think. It's not a healthy environment at all. It really messes with you. And only, the 13 months we were in, you can definitely tell just how it's hard to sit inside. You just want to go outside with parties, you just can't. I don't know. It's hard for me to go to parties anymore because even though you're family and you love to see everybody, just sitting inside with so many people, it's just like, man, I got to get out of here.
Like you feel claustrophobic.
Claustrophobic,
man.
yeah.
That's why it's been nice. Like, well, he says parties. We have a lot of like birthday parties. We have a lot of family.
Yeah.
So we
There's
have like
always
cousins,
somebody.
Yeah, birthday
that's
at
even
least
friends.
everybody.
Everybody has like with 8 of us kids, their wives, their husbands. Everybody put together is a lot of people, anyways. Plus, if you have friends over or whatever. So yeah.
And then the
It's
holidays seem to there's so many holidays. There's always somewhere to go. Like, can I please just slow down? But it's good. It's good to be out. You can. It's easy to look at all these things that you have to deal with now. But I mean, you talk about goodness of just the freedom to be able to choose to do what
every
you want to do.
time you open
really.
that door to walk outside.
It's like, man,
thank you, Lord. Like
that's it.
we could have
choose
been
to do
years
it.
more.
Yeah.
The hardest day at work is better than the best day in jail.
Yeah.
This is
Yeah.
100% true.
You're making heck of more money than
And you could
$3 a day.
you could also find time to work out. 6:30 every morning.
Yes, you can't
I
find
get up.
time. It's just
I go to the gym.
Yeah,
You know
but
what I mean?
so I also work at 4:30 in the morning, so it's hard to do it in the morning. And
Big flex.
so morning workouts are
All right, so
extremely difficult.
3:30 in the morning.
That's right.
You're out there.
And get
No,
the workout
yeah.
in. Man,
who needs sleep?
that's good. I mean, you're
Sleep
right.
when you're dead.
Yeah.
Just why
But
even go to bed at that point?
that's
Just
it.
like get home from work and just start working
Yeah.
out.
Just do the
and
Sam Dolan.
The Sam Dolan. All right, let me
Sleep
tell you
at the
about
Red
day,
Lights.
all
Let me
night.
tell you about
Oh,
Sam Dolan.
Sam.
He's our cousin. He is
a freedom.
I mean, this
patriot.
man, he will study something out, and I don't know if he does sleep.
Never seen it.
Never seen it happen.
Oh, I
Except
have.
I have walked in and he's just crashed out somewhere. Sometimes he'll go 3 days straight of absolutely no sleep and then just crash somewhere and sleep for a full 24 hours.
Just Sam.
But
Sam,
he's
are you standing there asleep?
He's great. I mean, the man, he will stand on what he believes.
Yeah,
I
well.
mean, tooth and nail, it does not matter, and nobody's gonna budge him. And but it's good. He will study out the word and find out if it is right in Scripture to actually believe in what you're doing. And if
Yeah.
it is, then nobody's gonna change his mind, and he will stand on that. And so, guys like that, you respect how much they believe in something. Because when we went through January 6th, you just met so many people that don't believe in anything. They went to January 6th. They regretted everything about it. They wish they were never there. As soon as, but before that, they, all gung-ho. We love America. We love the God-given rights that we have, and we need to stand for it. And then as soon as there's consequences to that belief, as soon as, oh, no, now I have to pay a cost for what I believe in, now never mind. Should have never done it. Should have never stood for anything. I regret I just want to go back to my hole in the ground and bury my head in the sand and want nothing to do with politics ever again. And it's, you believe in nothing. You have no stance. There is no respect in that. Even if your beliefs are 100% grounded in truth and you're willing to give them up for ease,
You just don't stand on them.
you stand for nothing. You have no backbone. You have no foundation of truth. And so that's what a man is, that's what makes him who he is what he believes in and what he's willing to stand for. And, once you get to know somebody and what they stand for and what they're willing to give up, and it's kind of who they are, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
But someone that stands for nothing and is willing to give up everything just for that ease, willing to give all their freedoms up for a slight bit of ease is, it's...
Well, that is
Deserves neither.
Jacob and Esau.
Yeah.
He gave up his birthright, everything that God was going to give him for porridge,
Yeah.
for some subtle substance. Woo.
Yeah.
That's how...
So that's like, what are you willing to give up for the promises God gave you? God gave us this nation. He gave us this country. He gave us the promises that we have, these rights. And there's many a people who, for ease, would love to lay that aside and just throw their birthright to the side. And God, one of his biggest problems with Esau was that. It says he despised his birthright.
Yeah.
Over for nothing. And so
no, that's 100%. It's good to meet somebody, and when you do meet somebody that they stand on what they say, they are a man of their word. And that used to be such a trait that was cherished, back in the day, and even guys I grew up with, older than me, but I looked up to.
There we go.
They were a man of their word,
yes.
And that meant so much. If you weren't a man of your word, and that means what I say, I will stand on that. And what I say I believe in, I'll stand on it. That means a lot. I mean, it's easy to say stuff.
I would say it's hard to follow through.
And it's hard to follow through sometimes.
Even just basic stuff like, I'm going to show up, I'm going to help you out. And then all this stuff happens. And but I told him I was going to be there. And you got to be there.
Yeah.
Or at least, try as hard as you can.
Exactly.
And
for this. And that's
just the sake of your
sometimes
name.
I'll catch myself. I'll say something and be like, well, it's not that big of a deal if I don't show up. But for the sake of my character and for the sake of my word, I have to be there. Even if it's a small thing, those little things add up. Yeah. And they weigh on people to where they can remember those, oh, well, he didn't show up here and he said he would. He didn't do this and he said he would. He didn't do that and he said he would. Your word becomes less and less powerful. And it almost correlates the same with cuss words. A lot of guys, they don't see anything wrong with cussing and using strong language and things like that. And it to me, it's if your word is not enough authority, you have to back it up with cuss words or strong language to kind of prove that, oh yeah, I got strong words now. Now it means something.
Serious.
And I'm like, well, if your words actually meant something, if your character actually backed up what you're saying, you don't have to use strong language. You shouldn't have to, because it doesn't add anything. It only shows, either a lack of
poor vocabulary.
Uncle Tommy used to say,
a
lack.
But
or
hit us with some big words, Gabe.
It's like, okay, so your mom tells you when you're growing up. Like, I don't know, maybe your mom didn't, but I don't know too many moms that don't tell you, oh, we don't hate. We don't say hate,
Yeah.
But, oh, Mom, you don't understand. I hate this. And you say that over and over again on all these little piddly.
Ooh, I hate green beans. Ooh, I hate this.
Yes.
Ooh, I hate
and so hate, if you actually look up the definition, it is
an extremely strong word.
Yeah, it is extreme. And so your mom's telling you, hey, you may not actually understand the full meaning of this word. Don't use it like that. But Mom, you don't understand. Like, I would rather eat anything than green beans. Yeah, but you don't hate them. Like,
hate is a strong word. You don't understand.
So when we overuse words in our vocabulary, when we just repeat these words that we may not fully understand the meaning of, they become less, they mean less. And so I catch myself doing it, like using
I would say even if you don't cuss, you use the what did they call that? Euphemisms.
Goodness gracious.
Euthanasia.
Yeah.
Heck, or all these things that, gosh darn it. And it's like, okay, so
what's the difference?
I know I'm trying to add emphasis to the words that I'm saying, but maybe my words should just be enough. Let your
Yeah.
yay be yay and your nay be nay. Let your words be enough. When you mean something,
Yeah.
let it be enough. And so
Exactly.
Takes practice.
yeah. No,
Which, I mean,
that's
you
tough.
can look at that and be like, oh, okay, they're just picking on every little thing.
We're
But
speaking to ourselves.
Yeah, this is some thoughts that we've had ourselves, and just that's how I feel about. Not that I've never cussed or anything like that. I have, but it was funny when I was I'd hanging iron. You deal with a lot of rough characters in the construction business, and especially in the welding industry and stuff like that. You deal with some pretty rough guys, and cuss words are it's just everyday words. They don't even know that they're cussing. And and so when I got the job, they're like, oh, yeah, he'll, after a year of working with us, he'll be just like us, just cussing up a storm and drinking, smoking, doing everything we do, because that's just what you do in this industry. And so I felt like it was a challenge. I will not be like you. And after years of working with them, there's times I slipped up. And it's funny hearing, after years of working with him, I was talking with one of my old foremans, and he's like, yeah, Johnny doesn't cuss, but if he does, you better give him some space, because he is mad. If he gets to the point of cussing, then he is extremely mad. And they know it. Sometimes, you just have there's a reason for strong language, and I'm not bragging on sin. You shouldn't ever lose your temper and things like that, but sometimes you do. But if you don't ever use those words, and you do happen to use them, people step back and like, oh,
Hold
wait
up.
a second, he's not
big mad now.
he's not in his right mind. Give him some space.
I've worked with a guy, he's like, man, that was enough to make a preacher cuss when somebody would get hurt or something. And it's like, yeah, when you have that, and it's not to say that, holier than thou, don't cuss, because I try not to.
Yeah.
It does happen. That flesh takes over, and you just sometimes somebody needs a good talking down.
It happens. Yeah.
Right. We had a few questions over the
Comment
few weeks
section?
that we were comments, questions, and I want to say more even when y'all had left and you took your stand, on the lam. You took your stand for truth against tyranny, let's say. And the questions came up a lot about, Romans 13. How do you justify that? How do you fit a round peg in a square hole? How do you justify going against? And so I think the foundation has to start with, truth. First off, is there actual truth? And yes, there is absolute truth. Where does law come from at that point? Who is the lawgiver? Where does law come from?
Yeah.
And sort of establish that foundation, because the reasons that y'all did what you did, and the reason that even going back to the original January 6th and going back to the founding of this country, because you have preachers now that say that the American Revolution was not even
rebellion.
biblical. Like,
it was wrong.
We rebelled against God and the authority. Somehow God turned that around and blessed it. So I feel like that whole argument gets thrown out the window, because you see how much God blessed us as a country, and you see how much he's poured his hand of protection out on us as America. And it's like, so how do you say that God blessed evil? That doesn't make any sense. But that was some of the questions that we got, and I feel like you have to have that foundation in truth. That there is a truth.
Understand where our law comes from in the first place.
Yes.
Like our Constitution, our Bill of Rights. Where do these things come from? Where did they get the idea of setting up the first, second, third, fourth, amendment, and what are they based behind? And I guess we go ahead and read Romans 13, what they're kind of saying.
Yeah. Let every soul be subject unto the higher powers, for there is no power but of God. The powers that be or are ordained of God. Whosoever therefore resisteth the power resisteth the ordinance of God, and they that resisteth shall receive to themselves damnation. For rulers are not a terror to good works, but to evil. Wilt thou then not be afraid of the power? Do that which is good, and thou shalt have praise of the same. For he is the minister of God to thee for good. But if thou do that which is evil, be afraid. For he beareth not the sword in vain. For he is the minister of God, a revenger to execute wrath upon him that doeth evil. Wherefore we must needs be subject not only for wrath, but also for conscience sake. For this cause pay ye tribute also, for they are God's ministers, attending continually unto the very thing. So if you look at Scripture, this Scripture in a whole, because it, you take that very first verse, let every soul be subject unto the higher powers, and you point it to...
You have to obey government at all times, no matter what. Otherwise, you're in rebellion, and rebellion is sin.
And you don't take this full verse in, this full passage in context. Okay, so for rulers are not a terror to good works, but to evil. So what happens when your rulers are a terror to good works, and they promote evil? And we look at the last. Well, really, it's a slow decline over the last even 100 years, But especially in the last few years, you see the persecution of good and the rewarding of evil in our societies, in our communities, and that in and of itself is not necessarily saying, okay, overthrow a tyrannical government. But then you take into account where our law comes from, where the Constitution comes from. Yeah. You look at the Declaration of Independence, and I think that's what sets us aside from so many other countries and so many other, the average lifespan of a Constitution around the world is 16 years. Our Constitution has lasted for 200 and I don't know the exact
50.
number.
It's close to 50, yeah.
Yeah, and so you're looking at an anomaly in history, and when you see that, there is always something different. It's not just a run-of-the-mill. There's a reason that it has lasted so long, and it's because our founding fathers understood truth. There is an absolute truth. They understood that there is law, nature's law, and there is a lawgiver, and that lawgiver was God. And and you look at the founding documents, and you look at our structure of government, and you understand that they knew that there was a God. They knew that there was authority, and that there needed to be authority in place, but they understood also that there needed to be checks and balances.
Yeah.
And that the American people, they had literally just gone through a revolution where the King of England had slowly put more and more burdens upon them, slowly restricted their access to freedoms. And it was a long train of usurpations and tyrannies that had piled up, and before the revolution even happened.
Right.
And so you look at that, and you take that all into account, and you say, okay, so if it didn't happen all at once, they had seen all that build up over these years. They had seen the French Revolution. They witnessed all these things going on over the years, and they wanted to build a government and build founding documents that would protect those freedoms for generations to come.
Right.
And so they put checks and balances in there to give the people the power over the government. In the last 100 years, maybe more, we have slowly given those freedoms and those checks and balances away.
Which one of them is, if you read Romans 13, right? And they gave Americans the cleanest conscience you could have towards resisting tyranny. They said, we're not going to have a king. We're going to have a constitution that governs the land. We're going to have a constitution that's over the president, over the senators, over our representatives, over the people, that's only subject to God.
Yeah.
And that is what you're going to follow. You're not going to follow after a man. There's going to be no king in America. Yeah. There was no sovereign but God, no king but Jesus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was their battle cry.
Yeah.
And,
I know.
So here in America, especially nowadays, any American should be able with a clean conscience to stand against tyranny because they've set it up in such a way. I mean, and it wasn't on accident. These men understood. They just got out of a conflict with a tyrannical government. And they're like, well, what can we do to make sure the next generation doesn't have to sit back and go through the same things we did?
Yeah. And I think about it. I'm like, where did they get that idea from? Where did they get the idea of there is no king above them? There is no king but King Jesus. And you look at, the children of Israel when they first became a nation, and God said, I want to be your king. Let me be your ruler. Let me lead you. You just worship me, and I'll give you all that you need. And the people looked at all the other nations, and all the other nations had kings and rulers over them. And they go to they go to Samuel at the time, and they're like, listen, we want a king. We want a king like everybody else has one. We want a ruler that just tells us what to do, so we don't have to keep ourselves accountable and judge ourselves, I guess, accordingly. And
they don't want the responsibility.
We don't want
that
responsibility. Just give us a king. And Samuel tells him, he's like, this king is going to take your kids and put them in wars and tax you. And I mean, all these things, bad things he named off, things that kings do. And they're like, yes, that's what we want. That sounds great. And we understand it's going to be awful, but we want a king. And it became exactly what that was. The king became crazy, and it was awful. I think of what Israel would have been if they would have chosen God and said, let us continue to have God as our king and only have him as our ruler. And I understand God sets up men in charge because that's just how society has to work. As human nature, we have to have, bosses and these different men that rise to be leaders. But a king is different. A king rules over everyone and becomes the highest authority. And our forefathers saw this and said, every man from Scripture, what God has said, we are all equal. God has given us all these separate rights to our own selves that we will worship him. And what he wanted for Israel, let us start that nation. Yeah. Let us have that. And let us have that true freedom and judge ourselves and keep each other accountable. And, it's such it was a miracle. It was a miracle that many men had that much character to say, let us be able to step down out of power and let the people vote for who should lead. Let the people vote for a leader, because George Washington, they just went through that whole war. He could have said, what, the country's in turmoil, it's everywhere, let me just be the king.
Well, even after they tried to make him king.
Yeah, and they also tried to make him king. That's just crazy. People don't even understand that history is, the fight of keeping the Constitution and keeping the Bill of Rights together, even through those wars and the Civil War and all these different things is.
But you could look at it, it's almost like the temptation of Satan.
Yeah.
He looked at George Washington and said, I could give it all to you.
Yeah.
All you have to do is turn your back on everything you just stood for.
Yeah, just everything you just fought that war for. Just give it all up.
Yeah.
Oh, Paine, Thomas Paine writes here, but where, say some, is King of America? I tell you, friend, he reigns above, and doth not make havoc of mankind like the royal brute of Great Britain. Yet, that ye may not appear to be defective in every earthly honor, let a day be solemnly set apart for proclaiming the charter. Let it be brought forth, placed on divine law, the word of God. Let a crown be placed thereon, by which the world may know that so far as we approve of monarchy in America, the law is king. For as in absolute governments the king is law, so in free countries the law ought to be king, and there ought to be no other. but lest any ill use should afterwards arise, let the crown at the conclusion of the ceremony be demolished and scattered among the people whose right it is.
Ooh, man.
Talking about
Power to the people.
Powerful.
Yeah.
It's like,
Oh, man.
okay, God's word is the foundation, man's law, and then we're going to give that power back to the people who are being governed by it.
Yeah.
And you have the Constitution to protect their liberties and to give checks and balances to a government. And the sad thing is, over the course of time, we've watched those freedoms be eroded away. Our freedom of speech, the Second Amendment, which is designed to protect, sort of that last line of defense. Even you go down to like quartering soldiers in people's homes. That was something that England had done to keep an eye on the Patriots. Hey,
Almost like cameras in your yard.
we don't want our people being spied on by their government. You can't put soldiers in their house. You have security in your person and property, because they didn't know about cell phones and bugs and the different tools that we use now to spy on people. They didn't have video cameras back then.
Yeah.
But they don't even have to spy on you. I have not really spoke around this thing much, but somehow it knows that I'm on a high protein diet. All I get now are high protein diet videos.
Are you flexing on us?
No, I'm
just
just
had to throw
saying.
in that.
Let me tell you about my high protein diet.
Yeah, by the way, I'm eating 300 grams of protein a day right now. No
Oh, my
carbohydrates.
Getting
I'm
that
just
Yeah.
gonna get jacked.
Pretty
So
much the word
shoot.
path.
Yeah. But
But-
that's it.
Going
I
on-
mean,
they didn't know about those things, and yet they gave us the protections against
Yeah.
those very usurpations of our authority. And we just gave them the Patriot Act. You look at
Oh,
the
yeah.
Patriot Act,
No, that's
and we
insane.
just gave those things away. And we're like, hey, we really don't like terror. This.
Oh, yeah.
It's not another country. It's not
something
a
you can
group of
actually
people.
destroy.
It's-
It is a war of terror.
we're
Yeah.
having a war on fear.
Yeah.
So we're gonna give you this fear to be afraid of, and because you're willing to give up your freedom, the protection being secure in your person and property, not having illegal wiretaps put on
Yeah.
you for no reason. We got to experience all of that. Like
Yeah.
literally the full force of the U.S. government was put on the family while y'all were away.
While we were there. While I
Because-
was there.
Oh yeah, no, they were spying on every
And
single.
before it even happened, like the
Yeah.
amount of
You'd
stuff
catch
in our
'em watching
discovery
you at work.
that we saw
You'd
that
catch
they
'em
in the amount
at
of,
church watching you. You'd catch them everywhere. And then we had, while we were going through it, we had the FBI set up another camera out on the telephone poles or wherever, and you'd see that and be like, wow, these telephone poles could be, 800 yards off, and their cameras would zoom in all the way to wherever it was pointing at the house. And we knew about it, but it was crazy how far they went to.
they didn't care.
They'd spend an unseen amount of money because they wanted to make an example of, you have an idea that you have the right to say no. And
That's like we don't
Which-
even we have the right, but we have the duty to
Oh,
say
yes.
no. Like
Responsibility.
it is our duty when we see, the atrocities that we saw
Exactly.
January 6th, with the voting, even before that with COVID, like I feel like we kept drawing a line, stepping over, drawing another line, stepping over, drawing a line, and then like the election happened and we're like, okay, that's the last straw. If we have no vote, we have no say as an American people to dictate, who's in office, who's not in office, yada, yada, yada. We have nothing.
Oh yeah,
Absolutely
you're just
nothing. And
pretending
that's
what-
to live
draw
in a
it-
free society at that point.
Yeah, going
Yeah.
off of common space. Oh, sorry, I'll let you talk.
Oh, I was gonna throw there real quick. While on that reviewing January 6th footage, some of the complaints had nothing to do with the election. One of the guys is
Yeah.
like, "I lost everything because of y'all, because of COVID," you know, and he was
Right.
like, I think it also had to do with the vote. He's like, now you want to take my vote too. He's like,
Yeah.
I had millions of dollars in assets and houses, and now it's all gone because you shut down the economy. I think he was like from California or something.
Oh yeah.
And he's like, now all I have is a Tahoe full of guns. And he's like,
Nice.
you guys, you want me to come back? You know, and I was just like, man, this guy.
He's done. He's fed
And
slap
then
up.
it was the saddest thing at the end of January 6th. It's like 6:00 and they're like clearing everybody out. And I watch him get tackled by like 3 officers over the wall and they cuff him up. I'm like, oh, poor guy. It was,
But
Yeah.
the thing, they knew, how to, they say it was a setup, They knew what the American people had been through.
Oh yeah.
And so, setup or not,
Yeah.
America was, we were fed up. And it
Yeah.
was like, that was the least we could do. Like, the last straw. We didn't come there with a bunch of weapons, a bunch of stuff, you know. We didn't even know what was going to happen. But that was the last, like, at least, the least we could do was stand there and just say, no, like, we're tired of it. But reading Thomas Paine's Common Sense, when we were on the go, out and about.
On the out and about.
On the roundabout, I had put a couple of audiobooks and different things on a thumb drive because we didn't have an internet or nothing like that, but we had a radio that had a thumb drive on it. And so we got to sit down like a couple of days after I left. We sat down and we just listened to that whole thing. And we listened to it a couple of times because it was so good and so relevant to almost exactly like what we were going through at the time. It was crazy. And it's just like, wow, like the amount of knowledge and wisdom that came out of, the writings of our forefathers had to come from God, because it was like
Exactly.
just the way certain things and the way they worded it. And it was just amazing. Like, wow, how do people not see it? How do people
Exactly.
think we are crazy and like think we're radicals? How aren't more people doing exactly the same thing and just not going along with it? That's why everybody was like, oh, you were wrong for cutting your ankle monitor. We had seen people walk into court, turn themselves in over and over and over again just to get screwed over by their own government, to be demonized, to be denied their rights of due process, denied their human rights in jail, like the way they treated them, denied even being able to bring certain evidence to court, switching stuff. And it's like that to me was I didn't know what else to do, but it was like the only thing I could do was just to say no.
Exactly.
And it was just like in World War II, where the Jews had gone and they would just load them up on the trains and load them up and round them up, and the neighbors would all watch and not do anything. And it was like, and then they would just go, and it was like, when are we going to stop loading up on the train and getting hauled off to concentration camps and just say no? And that's what it was like. That was, to me, the only thing I could do. I mean, I had options. I could go to jail. I wasn't scared to go to jail. I'd been in jail before, I knew how it, rolled. It's not a big, I didn't want to go to jail, but I knew I could handle it. But it was like, I don't know, like almost the rebellion against tyranny is obedience to God. It was like my only thing I could do was just say no and just say, let me make them work a little harder for it and take a little longer. Maybe, if they're on us, they won't be on somebody else. And ultimately, I feel like God decided when we did go, and that's what we prayed, through the whole thing, if we're doing wrong, let us know, and change our hearts. And we had a clear conscience through the whole thing.
People love Hebrews chapter 11, the hall of faith, right?
Yeah.
And they love to use it as, examples of these, great men of God who stood for God, And what I think is beautiful about it is everyone likes to think of faith as just one thing or one way to live or one thing to do. But the hall of faith is just full of a plethora of different situations that men were put in.
Yeah.
That they still chose to serve God in whatever way was necessary to do so.
Right.
And so you have like, verse 23, by faith Moses, when he was born, was hid 3 months of his parents because they saw that he was a proper child and they were not afraid of the king's commandments.
Right there is, we've had people say, defying the government is, that's disobedience to God. You shouldn't do this. You're living in rebellion. You're just rebellious. But then there's you can't find anywhere in scriptures that there's patriots. Patriots not in there. And you can't find anywhere where it's all right to run from the government and to stand against the government. And right here, by Moses, he's in the Hall of Faith. In the New Testament, they always say, well, that's Old Testament. You can't bring that. This is New Testament, all right? And it says, go ahead and read it again. Let everybody know about it.
So it says, by faith, when he was born, was hid 3 months of his parents, because they saw that he was a proper child, and they were not afraid of the king's commandment. Let me continue reading all the way down to verse 27 here. And it says, by faith, Moses, when he was come of years, so this is him now, not just his parents, this is him working his faith out, now that he's older, refused to be called the son of Pharaoh's daughter, choosing rather to suffer affliction with the people of God than to enjoy the pleasure of sin for a season, esteeming the reproach of Christ greater riches than the treasure in Egypt. For he had respect under the recompense of their reward. By faith he forsook Egypt, not fearing the wrath of the king, for he endured as seeing him who was invisible.
Man, that's good.
There is consequences sometimes. That's what, we knew, you're going to get more years if you cut and run or whatever. But to me, it was worth it. To me, it was at the end of the day, at the end of my life, when I face my kids, if I ever have kids, or if I, face the Lord at the end, I don't want to be ashamed that I didn't do something that I knew I could have done and it make a difference. And it may not have made a difference. It may have given hope to somebody. I don't know. And we may never know. But to me, it was at least I can, die with a smile on my face that knowing that I tried or tried to do something.
Yeah. And I believe God gives us choices, and sometimes they're extremely difficult, and he would have been with us either way.
Yeah.
If we would have went to jail or if we would have been on the run. But I believe especially in my case, and I can speak for myself, is, when I came to that decision, they're hunting you. You have to go because it's going to get so much worse. And I had so many people trying to say, just turn yourself in. It's just going to make it worse if you go on the run. They're going to catch you eventually. And
they may kill you.
And they may kill you. They just looking for a reason, and just turn yourself in and it'll all be over and you just get your time and go. But I saw so many of these guys doing the same thing, and they'd buy these lawyers and spend an insane amount of money on these lawyers, and they would get nowhere. And the law was thrown out the window, and videos were deleted. They had no evidence that they should have had to prove in their innocence. And I'm like, why will I play their game? Why will I go and accept, these charges when I'm innocent, when I was doing what, as Americans, is our duty to say no when the government gets out of hand? Yeah. Why will I say, what, I was wrong. I am ashamed of what I've done, and discipline, I deserve to be in jail. Everything I preached, was it all just a lie? Did it mean nothing? As soon as there's consequences, should I just give up? And I had that choice where it was almost a pull in between my flesh, whereas, you can choose this and God will be with you. And I believe you can choose this way and God will be with you. But the other is going to be so much harder. When I decided I will go on the run, but if it is not God's will, they will find me immediately, and I know it. I know it without a doubt. They will find me no matter where I am. I cannot hide from God, as Jonah tried, and I'm not running from jail, but I'm standing on what I believe, and I'm not going to give up on that. And I saw that peace, and it just came, and just, all right, I can rest. And people say, could you sleep at night? How bad was it? And I've never been more at peace in my life than I was when the government was hunting me, when I had a bounty on my head of $30,000. I slept like a baby, and I felt God's presence so much closer, and I studied his word so much more than I ever did in my entire life. And people will say all they want to about, you were out of God's will. You're full of foolishness, because you've never actually stepped out in faith like that, and you feel like you have a say. in somebody else's life.
Yeah,
But like here in the Hall of Faith, these men and women stood in different ways out of faith. Maybe it's not your way. Maybe God will never call you to step out in something like that. But you cannot say that it was not God's will or God was not in it in my life.
Right.
Because you did not experience those things and you did not see it like I saw it.
And
speaking of, oh, go ahead.
Oh, I mean, I don't know how much you want me to read, but I mean, it's really good here at the end. And they go through even more examples of faith and just how they can be different. And it says, who through faith subdued kingdoms, wrought righteousness, obtained promises, kind of like Jacob, stopped the mouths of lions, quenched the violence of fire, escaped the edge of the sword, out of weakness were made strong, waxed valiant in fight, and turned to flight the armies of the aliens. Women received their dead, raised to life again, and others were tortured, not accepting deliverance, that they might obtain a better resurrection. And others had their trial of cruel mockings and scourgings, yea, moreover, of bonds and imprisonment. They were stoned, they were sawn in half, were tempted, they were slain with the sword. They wandered about in sheepskins and goatskins, being destitute, afflicted, and tormented, of whom the world was not worthy. They wandered in deserts and in mountains and in dens and caves of the earth. And these all, having obtained a good report through faith, received not the promise, God having provided some better thing for us, that they without should not be made perfect. And so they did all this not knowing the promise. They didn't get to see Christ. We have the promise now. It should be easier to stand because we know the end.
Yeah.
God already fulfilled all the promises of the Old Testament, and now he's promised us greater riches and a greater kingdom in Revelation.
Yeah.
And so it should be easy to stand for him. We know the ending of the book,
Exactly.
you know, and we've already seen him perform and over exceed the expectations of the prophets.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know,
You know the reward.
And-
you know that the suffering that you go through here will be, like he said, the ones that go refuse the salvation to have a better reward in heaven. You know, they refuse the safety to say, hey, I will be persecuted.
deliverance from the sword.
Yeah.
They'd rather be slain.
So, you know, when you
Yeah.
get to heaven, the reward is greater. But going back to what you had said, you know, talking about people talking about you trying to decide for your life, the power that you had living that, getting to see the miracles that, and we don't have to go into it right now, but I know I got to see miracles for each one of y'all, you know, that happened that nobody, you know, other people didn't get to see. So when I would say something, I could say it with truth and, you know, with power when I would talk to different people. And it's like, why are you denying God's work right here in front of you? You see the Lord's hand on each one of these men and women. And it's like, no, I feel like it comes back to accountability. Because if God was working in y'all's lives while you were going through that, then what am I not doing? You know, Patrick Henry says, is life so dear or peace so sweet as to be purchased at the price of the chains of slavery? Forbid it. God Almighty, I know not what course others may take, but as for me, give me liberty or give me death. And you weren't saying that necessarily. You were, you know, putting your life on the line because you had an armed and dangerous tag on.
Yeah.
You know, they somehow thought that you were ready to go to war, you know, but so you, in a way, you were putting your life on the line, but you're saying the country is worth fighting for. We saw the slavery that was happening. They had taken your vote away. What do you have? You have no other means of redress. How do you redress your grievances when you can't even vote? You know, and then or
you can't even protest.
Just protest more. Okay, well we did, and then you had them rounded up, hunted down.
We
like
just got to protest harder.
Yeah, protest harder. Okay, well, what does that even look like? How do you protest harder? You're all in, you know,
They don't
You're
want
all
us to
getting rounded
protest
up.
harder.
No, they didn't. They wanted to set an example and to shut it down, and that's what they did. They did.
Yeah.
They did a great job of that because people
they
were scared to
people.
show
Yeah.
up. People were scared to take a stand. And
I think that's why people look bad on what he did, like at the beginning, like, oh, you know, you must be doing something wrong. Because honestly, it is scary. You have the weight of the entire government on your shoulders, like coming after you, looking at every single, like Joey had in his Discovery, he got to see a little bit more because he was pro se. Every single person that I worked with or, you know, went to their house when I was on ankle monitor for those 2 years, they looked at their
financial records and everything.
Like, they had
especially when you
nothing to do
disappeared
with
to
it.
see if they were somehow
And they thought it, you know,
putting
they
the money
had
through them, you know.
That's why, like the Patriot Act, that whole thing, they used that to just rape our personal,
and like they weren't, the people weren't even at January 6th.
Yeah,
nor
didn't
was
have
there
nothing
any
to do with it.
correlation.
Just somebody I was painting their house, or somebody I went to their, did some drywall work or something.
To 3
That's the only excuse they needed
that they can look at. You know, so it's you, somebody you know, somebody that they know, and that's how far they can go.
And that could be how far that can get.
That's a lot of different people.
Pretty much anybody in the U.S.
But people don't know. Yeah, people don't know how bad it is.
I thought
you're putting into it.
But I thought it was crazy just when you look at it now how good they are at what they do. And
they're bad at it, but
they are extremely good at controlling people's emotions and working on them. You know, because you can't just blatantly come out and say, all right, y'all are all doing this. And you have to, otherwise it's against the law. People would rally up and be like, no, we're Americans. We will not let you do this. Well, you'd think they would.
Well, yeah.
But if they control you, if they can control you with fear,
that's it.
If they can get you to think that it's for your own safety, that, you know, you're making the decision, you're not allowed to go see your family anymore. And if they want to see you, it's because they hate you and they don't care about your life. Mm-hmm. And now you turn against your family. And now you break down the only people that you can trust.
Hospital,
and you break up the family, which now you have no community. Your community is broken up. You're all against each other, just trying to survive, and you think you're doing right because that's what these high up people tell you. These, you know, these so-called doctors say,
experts.
You're doing great, man. You just bunker down, hide, and call out anybody else.
Call in your neighbor. They had 7 cars in their yard.
Yeah, call people out, and you're doing great. And so you got the idea of, all right, this is all right for us to do this. You know, now we can just turn on each other, and it became normalized to just not be allowed to go somewhere for your safety. Out of fear, they were able to control us. And then, you know, you go through that whole thing, destroying their economy, and then you go into 2020, and they're like, you know, we're going to take the election after we've already trained people how to turn each other in and how to you know, not stand for anything and just come against each other. Let's go with 2020. All right, now we take your vote. And those that are still willing to actually stand for something, they'll show their true colors, and then we'll know those that aren't controlled with fear.
Yeah.
And it was almost a whole nother test. You know, those guys, we're going to weed through all of them. There's like 1,500 of them, and even more so that showed up to January 6th. And anybody that speaks out and says it was good, that's that even farther. All right, these are the real guys that actually believe in what they're doing. So let's go after them and absolute crush their spirit to where they have all those others that are watching never have another thought of standing up for anything. Because remember, these guys, they thought they had an election stolen. They thought this. They were wrong. They broke the law, and we discipline them, and we put them in jail. All right, and they deserved it, and we will convince you of that. And if you see anybody else that you think broke the law, you just let us know, and we'll go take care of it. And you're doing great. You just stay in line. All right. And you've created a community now, a country that is willing to turn on each other over a cause that we're all supposed to do. You know, we were all supposed to be there and say, no, wait. Y'all are stepping way out of line here.
Democrat
all
alike.
America was supposed to do that. I don't care who you're from or where you're from and who you know. And, we should have all been there. We're all Americans, and these are all God-given rights that no man should ever take away or could. You know, we shouldn't ever give him the power to take these things away. But out of fear, they learn that they can control people. And if you are willing to be controlled by fear, you're willing to be controlled by somebody. And, that's what a couple episodes ago, we just talked about fear and learning how to control your own fear. And it's just such a powerful emotion that people get, pushed around. But it's what we stood for that day, what we still stand for. People were afraid, and they're like, just turn yourself in.
Just throw principle out the window.
Just give up.
Who cares?
And just go get in jail because it's easier on us. Then we don't have to think
go get
about
yourself
it.
some jail, boy.
No, but that's how it was. It was almost like
jail. No, but it's easier for them. They don't have to think about it anymore.
If you just sign up for hell on earth and just go suffer in jail, then we don't have to worry about you or where you might be. And it'll be a whole lot easier on us if we know that you're just suffering in jail, because at least we know where you're at. And I heard that so many times. And I'm like, you cowards. You are cowards. And I could say that to their face, because it's absolutely ridiculous how fast people turn on you out of fear. Mm-hmm. And
that's why the Bible says fear is sin.
Yeah.
Those who give up essential liberties to purchase a temporary safety deserve neither liberty or safety. The founders understood how important the First Amendment was.
Yeah.
How important our freedom of speech, because if we can communicate with each other, we can redress our grievances, and we can talk about, hey, this is what's happened to me. Hey, what's happening to you? Mm-hmm. And you talk about it, and you're like, wow, the government is stepping way out of line here. Mm-hmm. And then Facebook comes in,
oh, you can't talk
censor
anymore.
that. Nope. We're going to delete that post. And, and the government allows it. They're like, we're going to turn a blind eye to it, because they're doing what they were telling them to do. And you have news, the news media was literally controlled. Like, I watched so many clips of the news media saying the exact same thing. And I don't care how many, different channels you included, they were reading from a script. They had been served, here, this is what you're going to say. We're going to create this artificial fear, and you're going to control people.
That's the Russia collusion right
by
there.
limiting the ability for people to communicate and exercise their First Amendment.
Yeah.
And so when that is taken away, when you remove that ability to communicate, when you remove that ability, that's what happens. You have January 6th happen, because it was all set up. They knew people were going to be fed up. They knew, hey, we're going to tell the courts, we're going to tell that, and this is, this is unfounded. You're just making stuff up. No, the courts refused to look at the documents. They refused to look at any evidence, and they're like, not our problem. Mm-hmm. Hold up. Well, whose problem is it?
Exactly.
It's our vote that we're saying, hey, look at the evidence. They changed votes. You literally had the polls shut down at 10 o'clock. Oh, we're going to stop counting. Why do we need to count? Why do we need the information tonight? And you have this huge spike for Biden. Where is all this coming from? Okay, so we're going to present the evidence to the Supreme Court. Nope. We're going to refuse to look at it. So what's the next step? It's going to Congress for certification. Congress, send this back to the states. Let us have the time to look at it. There are so many discrepancies in this. Give us the time to write this.
Yeah.
Nope. We're going to just set this whole coup up. Y'all tried to overthrow the government, and you see the consequences of it.
Yeah.
And so that gave them the ability to put the domestic terrorist tag on there. Okay, once you add terror in there, now we don't have to get search warrants. We can wiretap their phones. We can keep track of all their electronic communications. And so freedom just gets thrown out because you put that tag of domestic terrorists on there. And Tom, we're going to have him on, I think, next week. He literally had Homeland Security, the Department of, the Domestic Terrorist Task Force show up at his house to search his home multiple times, twice. And it's like, oh, well,
We just getting extra warrants.
we just
I know we've been
piled
here
up.
once, but Judge, can we get a second one?
and then we'll talk to him, but then they didn't even let him use that in his defense because he went to trial. Even after Trump won, the judge is like, yeah, we're still going to take that man to trial. We're still going to persecute
Guilty,
him.
all charges.
Persecute,
Get yourself some
prosecute.
jail.
Yeah.
Get yourself a can of Splode.
Yeah.
So when you have tyranny, it doesn't stop unless we, the American people, stand up and say, enough's enough.
Exactly.
No more tyranny.
Yes. And I hope,
easy, guys.
I hope
Just don't.
that we're seeing a turnaround right now with Donald Trump trying
Bringing common sense back.
curtail some of the you look at what they've found in the last just couple of months of the craziness that we were just throwing money.
I was like,
at
I'd
these
take some of that money that we're just
like
throwing in the garbage can.
billions and I think it's going to be trillions of dollars by the time they're done.
Get yourself some billions.
Of money that was just being funneled through the American, through the taxpayers, through the whole government system, because it's really just
Our judge's wife received $7 million of it.
and it's like for what? For all
What
those
was his
guilty
name?
verdicts?
Carl
Nichols.
Nichols. Yeah, Carl Nichols.
Nichols investing in
Old jerk.
prisons and jails.
Yeah.
Conflict.
I don't know.
Also was the reason
You
me
would
and
think.
Joey didn't get out. He wouldn't sign up.
He
Like,
wouldn't sign
he
off.
Trump appointed judge, I see.
Also, would not hear a single one of Mike Lindell's cases against the Dominion voting machines.
Yes.
Would not hear him. Shut down every single one of them.
Even though we may get banned for this because they don't like people talking about Dominion voting machines, but
Dominion
even
voting
those,
machines, Dominion voting machines, Dominion voting machines.
even
We're
those-
going on
Get
Rumble
yourself some
anyway.
Dominion. Sorry.
Sorry, we're just
That was
determined
cool.
to be
Sorry.
canceled.
Even though they're banned in like 90% of countries around the world because they're used as tools to rig elections.
To rig an election.
And it's like, and
I know what
there's
you're
no
saying.
suspicion here that we're using
But
them
let's
in America.
try them here.
We went to the Florida, to actually look at the laws in Florida. It is illegal to use any other system than Smartmatic or ES&S. You cannot use any other voting system. And it's
What about ESPN?
no,
Okay, I'm sorry.
That's news.
Keep going. Keep going.
and it's like, okay, so even if you wanted to do hand counted ballots on the day of election, the Florida law had made it illegal. Like you couldn't do that. And it's like, how crazy is that it's put into law that's why it's like, we don't need any more laws. We need to repeal the heck out of some laws.
That's what I'm
and
saying.
bring freedom back.
Yeah, get yourself some repeal.
Yeah.
Get your
Some freedom, man. Some liberties back.
People are like, oh, well, they're crazy. What's his name? The director
I
of
don't
the
know.
FBI.
Oh,
Tell us what his
Cash
name is.
Patel.
Bob
Cash Patel.
Builder.
Oh, he's a crazy person. He's talking about going in there and dismantling the FBI. And it's like, well, is he though? They literally
wish he
have been
would.
used for years
He's not,
as a
unfortunately.
tool to spy on the American people.
Yeah.
And literally enforce a cabal's rule, because we haven't been ever since Kennedy was assassinated. Once the documents came out about that,
Whoa, now
that it
we're
was
really
an
going to be
inside,
canceled.
that was an inside job. Have we actually had a voice? Have we had freedom?
Wow. They've
Just
always been
saying.
We're probably going to have to wrap it up pretty quick, but
Like
Yeah.
Christmas.
that's the thing. Yeah. Oh, I'll take some Christmas.
It was
Man.
funny she said
it-
that, wrap it up pretty quick, because speaking of Christmas, it comes up very fast every year, it seems like. And
Are you
also
about
with
to sell
presents,
some merch?
Yeah.
they also
totally
have
is.
to be wrapped up. And it's always those last minute gifts that show up and you have to wrap them up quick.
Come on down to Rapture. Get
Isn't
yourself,
that
Get yourself a last minute
Get
gift.
yourself a new
Speak into the mic. We couldn't hear you.
E365 fuse.
Ooh.
Order yourself a Sharps Brothers aluminum frame for it, and get yourself something nice for Christmas.
Wouldn't that be special?
Mm-hmm.
Can we get any Rapture merch yet? I mean, not Rapture merch, but
I don't know. Can we?
yeah,
You're the
can
boss.
You own the place. I don't know.
no Sons of the Warrior. Can we get the T-shirt yet?
Yeah, come in to Rapture and get yourself a
Yes.
Sons of the Warrior shirt.
They don't
We need
exist.
And a 360.
No, by
get
Monday
those.
they'll be existing. Okay, well.
Very good. All righty, everybody. Thank y'all
Challenges for
so
the week.
much.
Challenge for the
Challenges.
week. Don't be afraid to stand on principle.
I think the
Even
last
when there's
challenge.
conflict.
Be a man of
video-
your word.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, I
didn't
just
talk
talking about.
Oh, there we go.
Go ahead.
Last
Even if
Oh, we've had how many? 5 challenges since then?
Yes.
We've been working
So
out
many.
like crazy.
No.
50 burpees. Me and the kids were doing. I slacked off the last couple of days, but there for a while I was doing them, getting it.
50 burpees a day.
Yeah.
You can break it up if you want to, but get them in.
Mm-hmm.
Do a little exercise.
Do a little something.
That's right. That's
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
Move the body.
Go
Get
run a
limber.
mile.
That also sounds good.
yep.
Maybe that'll be next week.
Yeah.
My old coach in jail used to tell me, he's like, hey, buddy, tighten up. No chips, no pop.
Copeland was your coach?
He wasn't
we
actually
used his
my
real
coach.
name. Oh, no.
He wasn't actually my coach, but he was a guy that I knew.
Maybe
So
Tater Tot.
that's what he said. His wise words, no chips, no pop, tighten up.
Tighten
So
up.
there you go. Thank y'all so much. All right, I'm out.
Peace.
Peace.